Good morning, and welcome to the 2026 Annual Meeting of Stockholders of Primerica. I am Rick Williams, Chairman of the Board. I now call this meeting to order. I would like to introduce Ms. Catherine Smith, who the Board has appointed to act as our Inspector of Elections.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Williams.
At this time, I would like to recognize our directors who are joining us by phone today. John Addison, CEO of Addison Leadership Group and former Co-Chief Executive Officer. Joel Babbitt, Co-Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Narrative Content Group. Amber Cottle, VP of Government Affairs of Genentech, Inc. Cynthia Day, the President and CEO of Citizens Bancshares Corporation and Citizens Trust Bank. Sanjeev Deer, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Central, Inc. Ben Williams, the company's Chief Executive Officer. Darrell Wilson, Founder, Chairman, and President of the Wilson Collective. Barbara Yastine, former Chairman and CEO of Ally Bank. Two of our directors, Gary Crittenden and Beatrice Perez, have chosen not to stand for re-election. Each of them advised the Board that their decision is not related to any differences or disagreement within the company, the Board, management of the company's operations, policies, or practices. Mr. Crittenden has served as a director since July 2013, and Ms. Perez has served as a director since May 2014. We thank them for their years of distinguished service and contributions to the Board. The Corporate Governance Committee has commenced a search to fill these two vacancies with qualified candidates who will add background, skills, experiences to our Board that will enhance its strength and ability to serve our stockholders. As the search is ongoing, no nominees are being presented for election at this annual meeting with respect to these Board seats, and our Board will have two vacancies immediately after this annual meeting. Here with me is Stacy Gear, Executive Vice President, Deputy General Counsel, Chief Governance and Risk Officer, and Corporate Secretary of the company, who will act as Secretary of this meeting. I would also like to recognize our other senior executives who are also joining us by phone today. Peter Schneider is our President. Tracy Can is our Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Lisa Brown is our Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer. Bobby Peterman Jr. is our Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Ben Rogers is our Executive Vice President and General Counsel. And Julie Seaman is our Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer. At this time, I am pleased to introduce Paul Brennan and Dan Eldridge of our independent registered public accounting firm, KPMG. Both of them are joining us in person. The Inspector of Elections has reported that holders of at least 90% of the outstanding shares of common stock as of the record date are present in person or represented by proxy. A quorum is present and the meeting is duly convened. Each of you were provided with a copy of the agenda and rules and procedures for today's meeting. According to Ms. Gear, notice of the meeting was distributed on or about April 2nd, 2026 to all stockholders of record on March 23rd, 2026. A list of all stockholders of record as of that date is available for inspection by stockholders at any time during the meeting. There are three matters for consideration today. These matters are listed in the notice of annual meeting that is attached to the proxy statement. Under our bylaws, certain procedures must be followed for director nominations and other business proposals to be brought before the meeting. No nominations or other proposals have been received other than those described in the proxy statement. Therefore, nominations for directors are closed and no proposal other than those described in the proxy statement may come before the meeting. Only holders of the common stock on March 23rd, 2026, the record date for this meeting, or persons holding a valid proxy for such shares may address the meeting. If you are a record holder and you have voted by proxy, you do not need to complete a ballot in person at this meeting. If you wish to revoke a proxy previously submitted and vote in person, or if you have not previously submitted a proxy and wish to vote in person, please raise your hand and a ballot will be brought to you. It is now 8:35 a.m. and the polls are now open for anyone who wants to cast a vote or change an earlier vote. stockholders will consider the proposal in our proxy statement to elect 9 directors to serve until the annual meeting of stockholders in 2027. Information about each nominee is contained in the proxy statement, along with a recommendation of the board for the election of our 9 nominees. Is there any discussion on this slate of directors? Please raise your hand and I will call on you. I see that there are no questions at this time. The stockholders will consider the proposal in our proxy statement to approve on an advisory basis our executive compensation say on pay. Is there any discussion on this proposal? Please raise your hand and I will call on you. I see that there are no questions at this time. The final item of business is consideration of a proposal to ratify the appointment by the Audit Committee of KPMG LLP as the company's independent registered public accounting firm to audit the financial statements, books, and records of the company for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026. Mr. Brennan of KPMG is available to answer questions. Is there any discussion on this proposal? Please raise your hand and I will call on you. I see that there are no questions at this time. I hereby declare that the polls on the matters presented at this meeting are now closed, and as of 8:36 a.m. today. The proxies will be held in the possession of the Inspector of Elections. The Inspector of Elections will now count the votes. We will now report on the results of the voting. Ms. Gear, do you have the preliminary report of the Inspector?
Yes, I do. The Inspector reports that more than 91% of the votes represented at this meeting have been voted for the election of each of the 9 directors recommended and nominated. More than 98% of the votes represented at this meeting have been voted on an advisory basis in favor of our executive compensation. Over 99% of the votes represented at this meeting have been voted for the ratification of the appointment of KPMG as the company's independent registered public accounting firm for the 2026 fiscal year. The Inspector will furnish me with a written report of the final vote count with respect to these matters, which will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Final results, including the results for each director nominee, will be included in a Form 8-K filed with the SEC within 4 business days, and it will be posted on our Investor Relations website.
Thank you, Ms. Gear. I declare the report of the Inspector is approved, and that based on the preliminary results, the nominees for directors have been duly elected, the advisory vote on executive compensation has been approved, and the appointment of KPMG for fiscal year 2026 has been ratified. I will now begin the general question and answer period. If you are a stockholder and wish to ask a question, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Please state your name and the number of shares you own or for which you hold a valid proxy. If you represent an institutional owner, please also state the name of your firm. Please adhere to the 2-minute time period and limit of 2 questions per stockholder as described in the meeting procedures as a courtesy to all present. Seeing no questions, I would like to again thank you for your support and continued confidence in Primerica. The 2026 Annual Meeting of Stockholders of Primerica is hereby adjourned.